I found out that my wife had been having an affair with my biological father for years, which meant my son is actually my brother. So, I made sure their reputations were ruined. My name is Jason, and I once believed that discovering your biological family was the greatest gift life could offer. I was mistaken. Sometimes, the family you're born into is a curse, and being an orphan would be better. I was adopted at birth by wonderful parents who provided me with a great life, education, and love. Yet, like many adopted kids, I always felt a void. I longed to know my origins and see someone who looked like me. 5 years ago, at 28, I finally found him, my biological father, Robert Sterling. He wasn't just anyone, he was a powerful figure in the real estate industry, running a huge firm in Chicago. At 55, he was charming, wealthy, and impressively fit. When I contacted him, I feared rejection, but he welcomed me warmly. "Jason," he said, hugging me in his office with a view of the city, "I never knew your mother. She left before I knew she was pregnant. If I had known, I would have kept you." He seemed sincere, introducing me to his world, giving me a job, and even buying me a car. He tried to make up for 30 years of absence in just a few months. At that time, I was married to Elena, my college sweetheart. She was beautiful, ambitious, and loved luxury. When I told her about my biological father, her eyes sparkled with excitement. "This is incredible, Jason. He can change our lives." And he did. We moved into a luxury apartment in one of his buildings, dined at exclusive restaurants, and vacationed on his yacht. Elena got along famously with Robert. "She's a keeper, son," he would say, patting me on the back. 3 years ago, Elena gave birth to our son, Leo. He was perfect with dark hair and dark eyes. "He looks just like the Sterlings," Robert said proudly, cradling the baby in the hospital. I felt like the luckiest man, with a father, a beautiful wife, a son, and a fortune. But the facade began to crack 6 months ago. It started with something small. At a Sunday brunch at Robert's estate, I noticed a moment through the window Robert holding Leo and bouncing him on his knee while Elena stood too close, fixing his collar and lingering on his chest. When he whispered something to her, she laughed in that flirty way I usually heard in private. A twinge of jealousy hit me, but I brushed it off. "Don't be ridiculous, Jason. They're just clothes." But soon, I observed more. Whenever I traveled for work, often thanks to Robert, Elena would stay at his house for help with the baby. "It's just easier," she'd say. "His staff helps with the diapers, and I don't feel so lonely." I began to notice that Leo didn't really resemble me. I have green eyes, Elena has blue, but Leo has dark brown eyes just like Robert's. I tried to ignore it, reasoning that recessive genes exist. But then I examined our phone bill and saw something alarming. Elena and Robert were texting each other constantly at odd hours, hundreds of messages a day. Curiosity turned to suspicion. I knew Elena's passcode, Leo 2021. When she was in the shower, I grabbed her phone. The message thread with Robert looked mundane, just about dinner and milk for Leo. Too mundane. She was deleting messages. But I knew about the recently deleted folder on Apple. I found hundreds of messages that made my stomach drop. "Robert, I miss your touch. Last night was incredible. Elena, Jason is so boring. I need you again. Elena, I'm glad Leo has your eyes. He's a real Sterling, not a cheap copy like Jason." I dropped the phone, feeling sick. My wife and father were sleeping together for a long time, and Leo was not my son but my brother. I rushed to the bathroom and vomited. "Jason, are you okay?" Elena called from the other side of the door. "Just a stomach bug," I managed to say. I needed proof, scientific proof. The next day, while Elena was at yoga, I swabbed Leo's mouth, took a hair from Robert's brush, and even swabbed myself. I sent everything to a private lab, paying extra for rush service. Those 3 days felt endless as I had to act normal around Elena and Robert. When the results came in, they confirmed my worst fears. The relationship probability between Leo and me was 0% parent/child and 25% half-siblings. But with Robert, it was 99.99% parent/child. I was raising my brother as my son. The level of betrayal was monumental. I screamed in my car until my throat hurt. I contemplated violence but realized that killing them would only lead to my downfall. I wanted them to suffer, to lose what they valued most. Robert's treasures were his reputation and wealth. For Elena, it was her social standing. I put the gun away and started plotting. I learned Robert was organizing a grand jubilee to celebrate the 30th anniversary of his company, an event everyone would attend: senators, celebrities, investors. That would be my stage. I was a VP at the firm, so I had access to the financials. I discovered that Robert was laundering money and accepting bribes, hiding them in shell companies. I gathered evidence, copying files and forwarding emails that detailed his illegal activities. Next, I focused on Elena. She had a prenuptial agreement with an infidelity clause. If she cheated, she got nothing. I needed to ensure she couldn't twist the narrative to make me the villain. I installed hidden cameras in our apartment and recorded her conversations with Robert, including them mocking me. "He thinks he'll run the company one day," Robert said. "I'll leave it all to Leo, my real son." I compiled everything: the DNA results, texts, audio, and documents about Robert's financial crimes. The night of the Jubilee arrived at the Grand Hotel ballroom, complete with crystal chandeliers and a lavish dinner. Robert looked regal in his tuxedo, and Elena wore an expensive red dress, looking more like his wife than his daughter-in-law. I played my role as the charming son, smiling and shaking hands. When it was time for speeches, Robert spoke about family and legacy, proudly introducing me and Leo as the future. Then, I stepped up to the microphone. "Thank you, Robert. We're here to discuss the truth about the Sterling legacy." I signaled the AV guy he was in on my plan. Robert talks a lot about family, but he has a unique definition of it. The giant screen lit up, displaying the DNA test results. "For those in the back, this is a paternity test for my son, Leo. As you can see, I am not his father." "My father is." Gasps filled the room. Robert turned pale, and Elena froze. "What is this joke?" Robert stammered, trying to grab the mic, but I pushed him away. "It's no joke, Dad. You slept with my wife and let me raise my brother." Then, the screen changed to show the text messages. The crowd buzzed, phones recording everything. But wait, there's more. Robert loves his family so much, he steals from the government to support them. I revealed evidence of tax evasion and money laundering, announcing that I had sent everything to the IRS and FBI that morning. Just then, federal agents entered the ballroom. "You ruined me," Robert screamed, lunging at me. I sidestepped him, and he fell. "You ruined yourself," I replied. I just turned on the lights. Elena was crying, mascara streaming down her face as she begged for sympathy from the crowd, but they regarded her with disgust. "You can explain it to your divorce lawyer," I said into the mic. "You get nothing, Elena. The prenup holds. You are homeless." I dropped the mic, and it thudded on the floor. The FBI arrested Robert right there in front of everyone. Elena tried to chase after me, but security stopped her. The aftermath was a glorious downfall. Robert was denied bail due to his flight risk, and his assets were frozen. The stock price of his company plummeted. He was charged with massive fraud and is now serving a 20-year prison sentence, suffering a stroke shortly after. As for Elena, the prenup was ironclad. She received nothing and couldn't claim child support for Leo since Robert's assets were seized. She became a pariah, forced to move back to her parents' modest house in Ohio, working as a waitress. Now, regarding Leo, it was the hardest part. Legally, he was my son, but biologically, he was my brother. I couldn't face him. Every time I looked at him, I saw Robert and the betrayal. I contested paternity in court, and the DNA test proved he wasn't mine. I removed my name from the birth certificate and walked away. It may seem cruel to leave a child, but he was a constant reminder of my pain. I took my savings, along with a whistleblower reward from the IRS for exposing Robert's crimes, and moved to Europe, changing my name. Now, I live in a quiet villa in Italy, enjoying wine and the ocean view. I no longer have a family. I'm an orphan again, but for the first time, I feel free. I cut out the rot from my life, even if it meant removing my own heart. Sometimes, late at night, I check the news. I see stories about the Sterling scandal, photos of Robert in prison garb, and Elena looking worn. I smile. They wanted to make me a cheap copy.